Welcome. God cares about the poor. He cares about widows and about foreigners. And so he made a law for Israel's people. It's called the law of gleaning. And what it amounts to is something like this. When you harvest your field, you might want to be tidy and to make sure you get all your grain, but don't. Leave the corners of your field, or any bits that you miss, or any grain that you drop while you're working by hand to collect your harvest. Leave that, because a poor person might come along, and that might be the only meal that they can find for that day. It's called the law of gleaning. You can read about it in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 9 and 10. But today we're looking at the book of Ruth, chapter 2. My name is Keith Simons. I'm a Bible teacher from England. I present these talks on how you can understand the King James Bible, each time looking at a different chapter, studying it word by word and verse by verse, and seeking to understand its meaning. So in chapter 1 we had the account of Naomi and of Ruth, her foreign daughter-in-law, who'd come back to Israel as widows. And the whole story is about how this family, the family of Naomi, is going to be revived and become Israel's royal family. But, of course, at the moment, with them newly arrived back from the foreign country of Moab, what matters much more to Ruth and Naomi is how they can get a meal for the next day. And that is the story of Ruth, chapter 2. So, beginning as we always do at verse 1. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. Boaz, a great man, the hero of this story, but already a hero. Notice those words, a mighty man of wealth. Where that occurs elsewhere in the Bible, it's often translated, a mighty man of valour. Valour means military strength and boldness. Boaz was a great hero. And we've been reading in chapter 1 about Naomi's husband, Elimelech, who was not at all a hero. When there was trouble, he ran away. He left Israel. He went to a foreign country. But not Boaz. No, Boaz didn't run away when there was trouble. He stayed. He stayed through those 10 years of famine. And at the end of it, we see him as a mighty man of valour or a mighty man of wealth, a prosperous and successful man in the town of Bethlehem. Boaz is a kinsman of Elimelech. Kinsman means a relative. It would fit the facts if Boaz was the brother of Elimelech, but the Bible seems to be describing a more distant relationship. Maybe they were cousins, or maybe more distant than that, but they knew that they were related. And so we come along to Ruth in verse 2, and Ruth is trying to look after Naomi and trying to find that meal for Naomi. Verse 2, and Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go into the field and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said to her, go, my daughter. So Ruth has come to Israel with nothing, except for with Naomi, who also has nothing. Their husbands died in Moab, and the proposal is that Naomi is not strong enough to work, and Ruth is not able to obtain normal work, but at least as a poor widow, she can go outside the town into the field, and there, because the barley harvest has just begun, she can collect the grain that the reapers have left behind them, in accordance with that ancient law which is intended to provide for foreigners and for poor people. She's got a right to that grain, a legal right. Nevertheless, she's looking for the person who's going to show grace or kindness to her by letting her reap. Verse 3, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. Her hap. It so happened this was not a plan of Ruth's. She didn't work out which field she was going to reap in. She didn't work out who would be supportive of her. It was just happened that this was where she came to, the part of the field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of Elimelech and of Naomi. It's a little miracle. It's very little at the moment. It's such an insignificant miracle that we might not even notice that it is a miracle. But in the story of the book of Ruth, in the story of the revival of this family, and this family which becomes Israel's royal family, and the family from whom the Messiah will be born. So it's a great miracle, a great and wonderful miracle. And wonderful things are now going to happen in the life of Ruth. Because Ruth, in that field, is going to have a vision of heaven. I don't mean a literal vision. All she saw was people working in a field and a harvest that she could share in. But just think of what it meant to Ruth, a foreigner, whose only knowledge of Israel's people and of Israel's God was through Naomi. And there she is, one in the land that God has promised his people. She's in God's land. Number 2, she's among people who serve God. Number 3, for this poor, hungry widow, there is an abundant harvest field. And number 4, look at the generosity that she's going to meet with there. Look at the blessings that are poured out upon her there. It's a vision of heaven. And when we meet with God's people, shouldn't it be a vision of heaven? Verse 4, and behold, look, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Boaz came from Bethlehem. They've already been at work for, it seems, a few hours. They began at dawn, and they're working away, and Boaz has finished his work in the town, and he's come out to the field to participate in the work. And the first thing he does is greet the reapers, The Lord be with you. Until now, Ruth has only heard the name of the Lord from Naomi. She's never met anyone else who serves this God that she's chosen, the true God, Israel's God. And now she sees the owner of this field greets his workers with words, The Lord be with you. And then these young workers, young boys and girls and teenagers working in the field, turn back and they're all blessing Boaz in the name of the Lord, of Israel's God. Verse 5, Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? His servant that was set over the reapers. We sometimes miss the fact that the word servant, although it could mean someone of a very low status, it also meant a worker, an important worker, a responsible worker. And so was this man. He was responsible for directing these people who were reaping or harvesting the grain from Boaz's field. Whose damsel is this? Damsel is a rather quaint Old English word for a young woman. And so was Ruth. She was a young woman. She probably married in her teens. 10 years had gone by while she lived in Moab, so she's in her mid-20s. She's just a young woman, and a young woman who is young enough perhaps to have her first marriage. But of course she's had her first marriage and her husband died. Verse 6. And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. She's a foreign girl. She came back with Naomi. Verse 7. And she said, I pray you. That's an old-fashioned way to say please. I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came, and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. I pray you, please let me glean. She's got the right to that grain by God's law, but she asks. And we see in this the gentleness of Ruth, the politeness, the courtesy. There's nothing of pushing other people around in Ruth's character. She's always courteous and polite and careful and gentle. She's got a lovely personality, and this is being drawn out for us by the passage, the suitability of Ruth to, in time, marry Boaz. And she's harvested even from the morning until now. Of course, it's still morning. The man means that she's been gathering from the dawn until now. That last phrase, that she tarried a little in the house, seems to mean that she tarried or waited for a little while in the shelter. She's been working all this time, all these hours, collecting grain, because she cares so much for Naomi. She wants to bring back plenty of food for Naomi. But she did have to pause a little from the hot sunshine, and she went into the shade of the shelter they had there. And that was the only time when she wasn't working. Now it's our opportunity to see the character of Boaz a bit, and we see it in the kindness he shows to Ruth. Verse 8. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? In other words, listen to me. I've got something to say to you. He's trying to draw Ruth's attention. Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens, and another old-fashioned word for young women. There's young men and young women, boys and girls, who are working in this harvest field, and it seems that Boaz has arranged her work so that the men and the boys work together, and the women and the girls work together. And Boaz is saying, stay fast by or close by my maidens, by the young women. Verse 9. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. So what seems to be happening is that the young men and boys are cutting the stalks of the grain plants, and then they're leaving them behind them, and the young ladies and girls are tying them into bundles, and this is the work. And so Boaz has sensibly separated them. The young men also have the task of carrying these heavy bundles that have been tied up, as we'll see later, and also going to the vessels, to the water supply, which has been brought from the well at the entrance to Bethlehem. so that the workers have water to drink from. And Boaz tells Ruth he's charged to warn the young men that they should not touch Ruth. Not physically touch her, obviously, because that would be improper, but they shouldn't upset her, they shouldn't disturb her, they shouldn't call her names or try to frighten her away. And also, he says to her, go and drink from our water. Our water supply is for you to use as well. He's going above what God's law requires him to do. He's being generous. He's showing kindness. And so we see Boaz as a very suitable potential husband. And what's Ruth's reaction to the kindness of Boaz? She sees it as undeserved kindness, and she is so thankful for every blessing. Verse 10, then she fell on the face and bowed herself to the ground. That's a traditional posture to show honour to some great person. And she said to him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Why have I found grace? Grace means kindness in thine eyes. You've looked at me and you've shown me kindness. And you take knowledge of me. You're interested in me. You care about me, even though I'm a stranger. I'm a foreigner. I didn't think you'd care in the least about me. I consider this to be very great kindness. That's what Ruth is saying. Okay, verse 11. I've called this undeserved kindness. Boaz does not think that this is undeserved kindness. He thinks that it's kindness that Ruth deserves. Verse 11. And Boaz answered and said unto her, it hath fully been shewed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband. It's been shewed me, shown to me, explained to me, he means. It's been explained to me how much you've looked after Naomi. You've shown such kindness to her since your husband died. And how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, and the land of thy nativity, that's the land of thy birth, and art come here unto a people which thou knewest not hithertofore. So Boaz, is describing how Ruth, after the death of her husband, decided to come back with Naomi to Israel. Come back, or rather come for the first time. She was born in Moab. She belonged in Moab. She had the opportunity to stay in Moab, but she chose to come and to join the people of Israel, a people who she didn't know heretofore or until now. And he blesses Ruth in verse 12. The Lord recompense thy work. The Lord reward you for your work. He doesn't mean your work to harvest the field. He means what you've done to look after Naomi. And a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. The picture is of how a mother bird protects under her wings her little young birds. And Boaz is saying, I pray and I ask God to reward you in that way, to look after you. Just like you've come to trust under the wings of God. May God's protection be yours and God's blessing be yours. Okay, that's what he says. What's going on beyond the scenes there, behind the scenes? Boaz knows that he is a relative of Naomi. He has a responsibility, therefore, to look after Naomi as a widow who's come back with nothing from a foreign country. But he doesn't want to support Naomi by means of gifts. He wants to have a proper, polite way to arrange it. And Ruth's care for Naomi is giving Boaz a a way to help Naomi. Boaz is showing himself a kinsman, a relative to this family of whom all the men have died and only these 2 widows remain. Will Boaz show more than that? Will he act to revive this family which looks so destroyed? Well, we'll find out that in the next chapter. But first, we've got Ruth's response. Verse 13. Then she said, "Let me find favour in thy sight, my lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens." I'm just like your servant, your handmaid, though I don't really claim to be your servant, your handmaid. I'm not like these girls who work for you. I know I'm a foreigner, but you've shown great kindness to me. You've comforted me. You've spoken friendly words to me. And I desire, therefore, says Ruth, that I will find favour or kindness, continued kindness from you. She even calls Boaz my lord to show her great respect for Boaz. What happens next? A meal. Now, we would expect Ruth to take a little of that grain she's harvested, to rub it between her hands to clean it, and then to eat that for a meal and to sit separately from Boaz's workers. So what we're now going to see is more of this kindness from Boaz. Verse 14. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtimes come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. Okay, so Boaz has invited her to join the workers for the meal. He's invited her to eat his bread. This is bread from grain that was harvested last year, and which therefore is fully prepared and cooked, ready to eat. And so she's getting this bread, and she's dipping the morsel, that's a piece of bread, in the vinegar to add flavour to it. And what's more, the reapers have lit a fire, and they're grilling some of the grain that they've harvested on it. They want to taste that grain from this year's harvest, the grain that they've just collected, and so they parch it or grill it or cook it in the fire. And Boaz reached her parched corn. Boaz actually took some of that corn, their special treat for this year, and he gave it to Ruth so that she too could enjoy that harvest. And she did eat and was sufficed. There was so much food that he passed her that she, coming to Israel hungry, struggling for a meal, she's sufficed. She's had enough. She's full up. In fact, we're going to discover later in the chapter that she's had not just enough to fill her, but Boaz has been pushing onto her more food than she can eat. And when she was, verse 15 this is, risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. Don't tell her off, don't try to frighten her. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. These young men, some of them are just boys. They're inclined to play and to play silly games. So Boaz tells them the game that they can play. When they pick up the bound batches of corn to carry them off the harvest field, well, let fall also some of the handfuls. Do it of purpose, we say on purpose today, for her. Let her collect them. Toss some corn around. Let her collect it. Let her get more and more grain. Verse 17 shows she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. An ephah, a basketful. She'd have had to borrow the basket to carry all this grain back. She beat it out to prepare it, to make it ready for storage. Verse 18. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. And she brought forth, and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. Do you remember I told you Boaz gave her too much food? She reserved some after she was sufficed. When she was full up, she kept some of that grain, that fresh, parched grain, which had been cooked in the harvest field. And so she brought back to Naomi not just the basketful that she collected from a day's work, but she also brought back some of the cooked grain so that Naomi had her meal ready that evening. And Naomi sees that this is something special, that the amount of grain she'd gathered was enough for weeks, not just a day's grain. And her mother-in-law, verse 19, said unto her, Where hast thou gleaned today, and where wroughtest thou? Wroughtest, it means to work. Where did you work? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she shewed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. Verse 20. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. At the mention of the name of Boaz, Naomi immediately recognizes that this is the relative of her husband, and she declares God's blessing upon Boaz. And she declares that God has not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. How is God showing kindness to the dead? He's showing kindness to them because he's providing for their widows. He's showing kindness to them because he's going to allow their family name to continue into future generations by the marriage that is soon to take place. We'll be hearing much more about that in the next chapter. But Naomi explains this to Ruth. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. Near of kin means relative. And then that word kinsman, sometimes described as a kinsman redeemer. The nearest relative who has the right and the responsibility to rescue a family in distress, who has the responsibility to marry the widow of that family. And so Naomi gives a little hint here that she's thinking about the marriage of Ruth and Boaz. Verse 21, Ruth misses it totally. Ruth is still talking about the harvest. And Ruth Moabitess said, He said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. Naomi's a bit disturbed by those words of Ruth. Ruth is going to stay close to the young men? No, she doesn't want that at all. So, verse 22, Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It's good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, with the young women and the girls who are working for him. Go out with them. Don't stay close to the young men. It's good that they meet thee not in another field. Don't go to someone else's field. Keep in Boaz's field. Keep with the young women who are working for Boaz. There you'll be safe. There you'll be ready for your future marriage. So verse 23. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. So in Israel, there's 2 grain harvests. The first grain is called barley, and the second grain is wheat. And Ruth, each day, apart from, of course, the Sabbath day, the day of rest, is going out into those harvest fields, the fields of Boaz, to collect the grain that is left over and to provide for Naomi. Oh, God's great kindness has started here. God's great kindness to rescue this family, the family of Elimelech, which seemed to have disappeared. God has a plan for Ruth, and Israel's future royal family depends on it. Much more will happen when we study Ruth chapter 3, hopefully in the next of these talks. But I'm now going to read to you the whole of Ruth chapter 2. Before I do so, my email address, 333kjv@gmail.com. Please write, please let me know which country you're in. If you're in America, which of the states? 333kjv@gmail.com. And now here is the whole of Ruth chapter 2. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field, and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came, and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they should not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been shewed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Then she said, Let me find favour in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean, even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until even, and she beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she shewed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, It's good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law.